Hello, Canada. Hello, the United States of America, and greetings to every single one of you all over the planet. My name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Kevin J. Johnston Show that runs every single Tuesday, 7 p.m. Calgary time, 9 p.m. Toronto time, or Miami time if you're in the US of A. And we never miss a beat. We have got a show that's going to blow your mind tonight. We've asked Donald Best to come back. He is the former cop who went to prison for exposing evil cops. If you remember that story from a couple of weeks ago, he's back because we're talking about the actions of the Ottawa police who are putting one of their own through the ringer for doing the right thing. We'll cover that in just a second there. We also have Mike Martins joining us for the last half of the show tonight. We have a lot of world issues to cover and some property values to cover. You guys are not going to believe what's going on with American real estate and, of course, with Canadian real estate. I'm usually floored at how ridiculous it is. Mark Friesen is going to be joining us. He has got some news about Soji. So, whoa, this show is phenomenal. Let's get Ed in the show. Ed, sit up straight, please. Ed, you're coming on now. 3, 2, 1. There's Ed. You combed your hair. Thanks for doing so. Good to see you as always. All right, we got to talk very quickly here about Chrystia Freeland. All right, Chrystia Freeland is, and I'm going to show the picture. I'm showing the picture. 3, 2, 1.
And look away.
Yeah, that's her. That is our deputy prime minister. Which world leader ever dressed like this? At what point in aside from that Zelensky idiot over in the Ukraine, who dresses like this? Who goes into a meeting barefoot? Who deliberately steals 400 pounds of cottage cheese and shoves it up their dress before showing up for an interview and then not covering the cottage cheese with the same dress? Who does this? All right. Well, Chrystia Freeland does, the granddaughter of a Nazi. Well, they say, no, he wasn't a Nazi. He was a Nazi collaborator. Oh, that makes it better? No, it doesn't make it better. All right. He was a Ukrainian Nazi. There you are. That is who is second in command and technically who is in charge of our country. Ed, one more time. Got to do it one more time. There she is. Okay. She told all of us that we are not allowed to drive cars. She'll make sure that we're not driving cars at any point in the future. We're not going to be able to fly. But what she did is she got onto a plane and flew from Ontario to Alberta, which is 2 time zones away, to rent a car. Thank you, Nancy. To rent a car to then drive it at 142 kph, kilometers per hour, for our American friends. I'm not sure what that is in miles, but it's high. And then she gets pulled over and issued a fine for over $200 that she paid with her expense account. So what was the point of even pulling her over in the first place? Eduardo, go ahead.
Yeah, nothing. So what? She makes $250,000 directly just as sitting in Parliament, plus being the Kevin, I swear I'm going to leave this show forever.
I'm doing this just to mess with them. Yeah,
oh,
okay.
Stop it, please.
We apologize to everybody who's vomiting currently. Go ahead.
No, you do it on purpose. And
that particular image? Yeah, I just did. That is our deputy prime minister. Have you ever wondered why Canadians are not taken seriously in the World Economic Forum or in the world stage in any way, shape, or form? Because clowns like Trudeau and her are representing us. It's brutal. Anyway, Eddie, sorry, you had some info. I didn't do that.
I'm trying to delete this picture.
Don't just forget the picture. Tell us what you know about it.
I don't want to know anything about her. She's high up in the World Economic Forum. What else? She got a degree in journalism, and this makes her a prime candidate to be the Minister of Finance for the government. The books will balance themselves, right?
Yeah, the books will balance themselves because she has no experience running a business. She has a journalism degree or certificate. We're not even sure what, because I don't believe a word she says. But that's what qualifies this fashion disaster. Yeah,
I got to get rid of that.
Prime Minister
this
of the
is
country.
crazy.
You go ahead and delete the picture. We're done with that. But for those who do not know, there was a shooting in West Edmonton Mall. Apparently, 3 gunmen went in there and shot wildly. We don't know if anybody was killed yet, but we do know, and this is the crazy part of it, is that the cops didn't know what was going on, so they locked the place down. could you imagine being locked down? You have all the doors locked. Oh, there's a gunman here. No, there's 3. And no, you can't leave the mall because we're locking the doors. Now, how insane is that? Sorry, but I'm going to shatter the glass and I'm getting out. I'm not hanging around. You're not going to kidnap me and imprison me in a shopping mall when you've got gunmen running around. I don't care what police policies are. Police policies are not my policies. My life is certainly more important than almost everybody in the country. Wink. We got to make sure I get out. Go ahead, Ed.
Can we get an opinion from a real cop that's waiting in the
We will. Donald Bess is here, a former police officer. And he is going to now discuss a little bit with us about what's the matter. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
The Freeland photos.
The Freeland picture. Donald, are you okay? Your microphone's off. Yeah. Microphone's off. Okay. So we.
Oh, yeah. Don't do that to us again, please. No.
Tell you what, let's put it to a vote. This is, not a democracy, but would anybody else like to see the photograph again? If I get 10 yeses in the chat room, we'll go ahead and do it one more time. But Donald, this idea that if we know there's a gunman in a hospital, a school, or a mall, why are we locking everybody in? Any idea?
Well, it's all about what's happening there and the first guys. First officers on the scene and the procedures, and they change. And, do you lock the victims in with the gunman? Or do you think the shooting stopped? So you lock everybody in so that you can perhaps catch the gunman on the way out? It's something that errs on the side of catching the criminal rather than err on the side of putting people at risk. I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
This whole lockdown thing. I was introduced to this lockdown thing. It was, Ed, what would you say, 2017 or 2018? I went to go and serve a teacher at a Catholic school in Toronto a lawsuit, and the principal woman, not very smart, instead of just accepting the paperwork from me, here's the envelope, let me leave. Instead of doing that, she calls the police and locks the school down. So she held high school students inside of the school for 2.5 hours while I stood outside on the sidewalk talking to police about just tell this person to take this lawsuit so I can go home. I got to fight Toronto traffic yet. Right? So this locking down thing is something that I highly recommend we don't do. My personal view is if they're locking you down, leave. They in colleges, a friend of mine still is in York University, North Toronto. And sometimes they'll do a protocol practice. They'll say, oh, there's a gunman in there. And what they do is they lock the door, turn off the lights, and they tell everyone to lie down in the corner. Like, no, I'm throwing a desk through the window and I'm gone. I think that's the way to go. Well, let's move on, though, Donald, to why you're here. We have a police officer in Ottawa, a lady, who took advantage of the opportunity to investigate, which she has the autonomy to do. And why don't you tell the rest of the story? Go ahead, please.
Well, the background to the story is an Ottawa police detective, Helen Gruce, and she's a very experienced detective, about 20 years on the job. And she's part of what they call the SACA squad, sexual assault and child abuse. And the people that are assigned to that squad are the best of the best. Think of how difficult that is to have that as a job, dealing every day with abuse of children and sexual assault. And there's also, from what we know in sexual assaults, there's also false witnesses. So to be able to sort all that out, they have many, many years of training and, recurring training. And once again, only the best of the best. So Detective Helen Gruce, in September of 2021, was a little concerned about the mandated vaccines, the mRNA vaccines. And in September of 2021, she wrote a letter to the chief of police, then Chief Slowly of the Ottawa Police. And she expressed concern that the vaccines were being rushed and that any physicians who spoke against them were being silenced. But she asked if the police are going to mandate this, and I paraphrase, but this is what it is. If we're to be mandated to inject this new experimental substance into our bodies, and there's injuries or deaths, will the police organization be liable for that? Will they look after our families? And as we heard at the trial last week, there were 5 days of the trial. It'll continue in October and even go into January. Detective Gruss is charged with one count of discreditable conduct, which is under the Provincial Act. It's a Police Services Act, provincial charge. It's not criminal. But they have served her with increased notice of penalty. So she will be fired or could be fired if she's found guilty. So we heard last week on Monday a 3-hour recording of an interview of Detective Gruss by the Professional Standards Sergeant. Sergeant Arbuthnot is his name. And during that interview, the courtroom, which was full, it was full every day, just gasped when they heard that in September of 2021, the sergeant, Sergeant Guy, who was the supervising sergeant of Detective Gruss in the SACA unit, wrote an email that prohibited Detective Gruss, and presumably anyone else, from mentioning or discussing COVID or the vaccines. Now, the gasp was because it means that in this unit that is responsible for the preliminary investigations of any sudden infant deaths in the Ottawa region, they are prohibited from even considering that the vaccine might have something to do with why breastfeeding infants died suddenly. And the entire squad was prohibited from considering that. Wow. Big wow. And then we heard testimony that Detective Gruss was isolated from the rest of the squad. She was punished because she wouldn't reveal whether she was injected or not, vaccinated or not. And it got to the point where her sergeant, Sergeant Guy, ordered all the other members of the squad to never be alone with her, presumably so they could document whether or not she talked about COVID or the vaccine, which would have been disobeying an instruction or an order. They sent her to work at another facility far away from the squad, saying that they were worried about getting COVID from her. And then at the Christmas party, well, they prohibited her from going to the Christmas party. And they assigned her to work during the Christmas party, Christmas 2021. Now, you know, it doesn't matter where you work, the police, the fire department, Ford Motor Company, high school, doesn't matter. The junior guy or girl always pulls the duty during the Christmas party. Someone who's a senior detective, 18, 20 years on, they'll always go to the Christmas party, and the junior remains on duty to cover the place. Not so. So it was punishment city, and they ostracized her, and they punished her, and then in January, she had the second meeting that she had with the chief of police. She had met with him a couple of times, and even spoke about some police officers who had taken the jab and had been seriously injured by it. So Detective Gruss started making a report, and she looked into a cluster of 9 sudden infant deaths. And she was curious whether any of those deaths, or some of them, could have anything to do with the mother's vaccine status. And we know now, of course, I mean, that was in January of 2022, and there were reports and there were things happening. Certainly, an intelligent and diligent police officer would have picked that up. But now we know, of course, the Center for Disease Control, they admit that there have been injuries and deaths from breastfeeding babies from vaccinated mothers. We know in the Pfizer documents, for instance, that something like 28 out of 32 babies in the womb died, didn't make it, and of those that were born, only one survived. We know all that now, and we also know, and this is absolutely critical, we know that the people who made these injections and mandated them knew that people were going to be injured and die. They knew that babies were going to be injured and die. They knew that babies in the womb were going to be just slaughtered. 28 out of 32 are in the initial Pfizer study. And now we know about all that. And you know what that makes it? It makes it, at the very least in Canada, criminal negligence causing bodily harm or death. That's a serious criminal offense. So
yeah, but is that the most severe crime
that
they could be charged with?
No, I don't believe it is. But that's a good start, isn't it?
It's a great start.
It means that it's a criminal threshold. We've gone over the criminal. And as a police officer, I keep saying, if I still have my badge and my authority, there'd be a file open and I would be investigating this on a criminal basis. And so it was that Detective Helen Bruce started pulling together this case. And we heard all about it last week in this court case. I mean, I could speak for hours about what happened. It was unbelievable. And some of the things that we learned some of the goings on were absolutely reprehensible in relation to this trial. And if we have time, I'd like to get
John, sorry, could you address the question below you right now from John Barossa? Why don't the subordinates take the commanders into custody? I think we both know the answer, but I'd like to hear you. Go ahead.
Well, okay. I have arrested police officers. I have, and it's very sad, go to their homes, do a search warrant, and arrest them in front of their families. Now, we would have rather arrested them someplace else, of course. But because of the nature of what was happening, evidence that would have been removed or hidden or lost, we had to do a search warrant on police officers' homes. So I have arrested police officers, and it's not done lightly. And it's not done on the whim by a police officer, even an intelligent and diligent police officer like Detective Bruce. Let's face it. It seems like everybody took some sort of pill that just made them blind to what was happening throughout society, but in the police too. And there's also a psychological barrier when people buy into and bought into the jabs. They don't want to be told that they've got a time bomb in their body. They really don't. No. And they want to know that they can trust their medical experts and trust the government. People really want that to happen, and it takes an awful lot. And you've seen it, I'm sure, with your friends and family. So, I understand. Why don't you just arrest someone? Well, no, it doesn't work like that. Not really, not in the real world.
No, I get that, certainly. And so that we remind everybody, we have a lot of new audience members in tonight. And I want to thank everybody who's made the jump from TikTok and from Instagram to Rumble. Thank you for doing so. We certainly do appreciate that. And as a result of everyone being new, you may or may not know that I put this book out 3 years ago. Masks Are BS, Kevin J. Johnston, Stopping the Madness of Kung Flu. I wrote it to be a very offensive stand-up comedy routine similar to the 1980s. I'm giving it away free, everybody. I want you to see what it was that brought the Toronto police to my front door when I still lived in Ontario. They told me if I put this book out, they're going to arrest me. Well, here you are. You guys can go to my website, kevinjjohnston.ca, look for the book under the store, use those coupon codes. You just go ahead, use those coupon codes for the ebook or the audiobook, free of charge. If you like it, donate something. If you hate it, that's okay. You can email me a photograph of the middle finger. I will accept both graciously and with a big smile on my face. But Donald, they just didn't want anything getting out in the way of information about this, did they? Go ahead.
Well, that's all part of it. And it really is. There's a cover up going on right now. As a matter of fact, Frank Serpico, the legendary New York police detective, Frank Serpico, who was the original anti-corruption cop who caused the Knapp Commission in the 1970s, who was shot and set up and shot because of he arrested and fingered other police officers for being corrupt. He's following the Detective Bruce case, and he says that it's a cover-up, and I agree. But he also says that in order to cover up this case, they don't care whether there's infant deaths or not. That's a paraphrase. I'll get you the real quote later. It's on my website, donaldbest.ca. So let's continue in background. So Detective Bruce, in January, she was conducting an investigation to see if the mother's vaccine status had anything to do with these sudden infant deaths. As part of that, on January 30th, 2022, she called one of the parents, one of the fathers, and by all accounts, it was a cordial call. The parent appreciated it. You can imagine a terrible thing, a tragedy. Your infant has died, and the police call you. Why? Because they care, and that's a good thing. And so, by all accounts, that call, which she is charged with making, by the way. That's the reason that she is charged with discreditable conduct for a call that the parent never complained about and actually appreciated. So on January 30th, sometime around there, a couple or one of her squad mates complained secretly, and an investigation began. So on February 4th, Detective Bruce was suspended for this investigation. And it was an investigation into insubordination, and eventually it became discreditable conduct. So that's in February, and she's suspended. Well, in March 28th, the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the propaganda arm of the Canadian government, they published an article about the Detective Bruce case. And they got all sorts of inside information from two rogue, corrupt police officers, Ottawa police officers, who told the story and gave all the information illegally to a reporter named Shamini Yogaretnam, CBC reporter in the Ottawa area. 2 days later, she published another article. She was also on a radio show, March 28th, which I have a recording of, where she admitted that it was she had two sources who told her this story. There's more to it, but we'll leave that for the time being. So in May 12th of 2022, Detective Bruce was interviewed by Professional Standards for 3 hours. I told you about that. We heard all about it. And that came on the heels of a discovery by Detective Bruce, and this is what the discovery was. In February of 2022, the Ottawa police wiretapped Detective Bruce and her family. They did it under the urgent, and her family.
And her family.
And her family. Well, look, she was the target But I know from my wiretap experience, I worked it extensively when I was on the Toronto Police, that the family is always brought into it because, of course, you listen to the family, you listen to see if there's messages left for the target. Perhaps the target is talking to his daughter or talking to his wife or his girlfriend, his mistress. So you hear all of that. And, a wiretap isn't a wiretap anymore. It used to be we would tap the phones and maybe put a microphone in the cold cellar or in the garden or the tool shed or something where the criminals would go to discuss whatever they're discussing. And, as a young man, 23 years old, I spent over a year working wiretaps. And I can tell you, I was so naive to listen to people who say, "Oh, honey, bring home, a jug of milk, if you wouldn't, a loaf of bread. Thanks very much." And on the next call, they're discussing murder or kidnapping the baker's daughter and raping her because he refuses to pay protection money. So evil. So there's a reason for wiretaps, and the reason is good if it's for their purpose, which is serious crime that cannot be investigated any other way. But as part of that, you pick up the family. We knew that a mobster's daughter was pregnant for 3 months before she told her parents. We knew that the grandmother had a bottle of vodka in the garden shed that she used to tide her over when she couldn't get her methamphetamine. So you learn all the secrets. We listened to a son tell his father in tears that he had caught his mother with another man. So you learn all the secrets. Wiretap isn't just about listening to some mobster talk about murder. You get everything. So they did that to Detective Gruss and her family. And they knew that under the law, they would be sending her a form that informed her she had been wiretapped. That's the law. That was designed to intimidate and punish her and her family. And they didn't get the wiretap in the normal way. The normal way, which I've done dozens of times, you have to pull together a case with affidavits, get statements from witnesses, other police officers, maybe surveillance photographs, some records, business records, and you have to put it all together in a package, and you swear to the judge on the Bible that this is true, and we need this wiretap to solve the case. And of course, wiretaps now, they're cell phones. They can turn on your cell phone while it's on your kitchen table, listen to the room, or in your bedroom. They can turn that on anywhere, and they get your Facebook, and they get your messaging, and they get your chats and such. So it's really very invasive. But we put protections in place so that officers have to swear, pull together a package, and it's not something to be done lightly, except we have an urgent emergency section, which is section 188 of the Criminal Code. The ordinary warrant application or wiretap application is done under 186. You swear an affidavit. Under 188, it's meant for urgent emergencies where life is at stake, kidnappings, abduction, terrorism, hostage taking. That's what it's meant for. You go to a judge and you say, "Here's the name. Your Honor, we just can't pull together the package. It's so urgent. Give us the warrant and the wiretap warrant, and by law, we'll come back within 36 hours with the sworn package." But it's just so urgent now. Lives are at stake.
Yeah. Okay, Donald. So I'm just looking at section 188 right now. And here's the problem with the wording of that section. It starts off 188, subsection 1, notwithstanding section 185. So that notwithstanding phrase is there. An application made under that section for an authorization may be made ex parte, so nobody knows about it, to a judge of a superior court of criminal jurisdiction or a judge as defined in section 552. So it goes on to explain more. It just means they can do it because that's how I interpret that.
It's called the urgent emergency section. And you know what? Sometimes it really is necessary. Think of it. Hostage taking, school. You want to tap that guy's phone. You don't have time to swear an affidavit. Yes. But for Detective Gruss and her family, that's the section that they used. And then, after 36 hours, they didn't come back with the goods. Why? Because there was no evidence. This was a fishing trip. It was a politically driven fishing trip, also designed to intimidate and punish her.
But would the judge not have seen through this, though, when he was given this emergency application?
Well, I guess the defense will have to launch a motion to find out and see. And that's the way it is. That's the law.
Yeah,
so
and
what did they tell her?
Will go missing. I'm sure of that.
What could they possibly have told the judge that was true to get that wiretap warrant?
Well, actually,
what
could
they have told her?
Hold on, Donald, just a second here, though. Remember, during all this COVID nonsense, the scam bit, they could have just said, hey, judgy, what's happening? He wants the marijuana because it's legal now. What we want to do is get this person to stop looking into COVID-19 because we're getting greased on the side, and so are you.
I don't think that would have been the case. I think they made something up. And the reason
I bring that up, Donald, it's not to offend you because I know you're in law enforcement for years, but it's because of the way that I was spoken to by judges in the province of Alberta during this COVID nonsense and the way I was treated by the justice system. All they wanted me to do, and I was told by 2 Crown attorneys, if you could just learn how to shut up, Johnston, you wouldn't be here. That's all that it is, right? And then after they had me going through the courts for a bit, the Crown here in Alberta, I was talking to my lawyer on the phone from prison, talking to him on the phone, said, like, what's the deal? My lawyer says, hold on, wait a second. That's the Crown calling. And the Crown just starts off saying, hey, Ian, I want that effing Johnston out of my courtroom now. So within, I guess, 12, 13 hours, I was out. But yeah, so I could see it during the COVID bit that it could have been that. Not saying it was. I'm just saying it could have been.
There's another part of the story that I haven't revealed yet. And that was
here. You go
March.
First, and you talk without me. Here you go.
There we go. In March of 2022, I know because I proved it with secretly recorded phone calls that you can find on my website. Personnel from the Public Health Agency of Canada took an interest in the Detective Gruss case and influenced it. And don't forget, the Public Health Agency of Canada is the agency responsible for approving and mandating and advising all about the COVID vaccinations. So I spotted that, I think it was in September of 2022, when the hearing was televised, that is, it was broadcast on the internet through Teams. And I noticed that one of the people watching was a doctor from the Public Health Agency of Canada using their FAC account in the middle of the day, their business account. And I looked her up on the internet, and boy, she's a fairly high profile researcher. So I ended up, through a series of calls, recording a call with her and another person who had done research and published research with the Public Health Agency of Canada. And so what we have is the Public Health Agency of Canada taking an interest in this internal charge on the Ottawa police. Really something. There's a federal agency having directly influencing this investigation and charge against Detective Gruss. So all of these things add up. and bring us to last Monday, or a week Monday, the 14th of August, when the first day of the trial started. Now, the whole situation was just rancorous. The prosecutor stood up and objected to just about everything, every moment. It got to the point where the defense counsel, one of the defense counsel, stood up one time with a paper in his hand to ask a question of the witness on the stand, police witnesses. There were 3 police witnesses that came on the stand last week. So he's going to ask a question. His name is Blair Ector, fabulous lawyer, along with his partner, Bathsheba Vandenberg. They're out of Calgary, best legal team I've seen in decades. Anyway, he's going to ask a question, and the prosecutor stands up and objects to the question before he asks it. And he basically says, Your Honor, these are my notes. I'm going to ask you a question. It was crazy. It was just crazy all week.
I've never seen a Crown attorney do that. I've never seen an objection preemptive, ever.
Well, it got to the point where the judge, and don't forget, it's not a judge, it's the trials officer. I use the word judge because, people make sense of that. They know what it is. But this is an internal trial. It's a tribunal. And the judge, the trials officer, is a retired superintendent from the Ottawa Police. So it's all nicely packaged. The Ottawa Police investigated it. The Ottawa Police legal team prosecuted, and the Ottawa Police supply the judge. You got it? Okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, that stands to reason with the way things work with tribunals and the courts. In the city of Mississauga, when I ran for mayor in 2018, obviously I didn't win. I placed second. A year and a quarter later, Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie wants to get even with me. So she has 148 charges brought up against me for putting election signs on city property, which of course is legal. Now you'll love this one. The summons to appear in court came from a Mississauga bylaw officer. There were 3 bylaw officer witnesses. The prosecutor worked for the city of Mississauga. It wasn't even a Crown, just a prosecutor. And it took place in a courthouse owned by the city of Mississauga. And the justice of the peace, it was a real jerk. He lived in Mississauga and was also on the city of Mississauga payroll. So yes, I do believe what you're saying. It's been done to me. And of course I lost. And they thought that I was going to pay them $75,000. I, of course, told the JP politely, you're dreaming. But good luck.
Well, so we had an incredible week. The first witness was Sergeant Marc-Andre Guy, that supervisor, and the defense team absolutely eviscerated him to the extent that at the end of the day, the prosecutor said that she wanted to get another witness in to rehabilitate him. And we're talking issues of credibility here. You know what? When the prosecutor stands up and says she wants to rehabilitate a witness, it's been pretty bad. And it was pretty bad. So then we had the next witness, and that was Sergeant Arbuthnot. And Sergeant Arbuthnot is the internal affairs or professional standards investigator. And I won't say it was eviscerated, but it was pretty bad. And at the end, I think his credibility took a big hit. But there were a couple of good things that happened. First of all, we heard during testimony and also during that recording of the interview that Detective Gruss gave about 1,000 pages of her research, her investigation, to the sergeant, to the professional standards sergeant, on a ramstick and informed him about the Pfizer documents and the criminality and all the other things that she had found. And you know what that sergeant did with all that information about that evidence of a criminal offense?
Paper shredder?
No, he still had the ramstick. He just didn't do anything with it. Nothing. Yeah. Now, I call that neglect of duty. I do. When someone gives you evidence, information, and this is not just coming from someone off the street. This is an experienced detective that you've trusted for years. Her Detective Gruce's evaluations, annual evaluations, were just brilliant every year. 2021, it was just excellent, excellent, excellent. We are so lucky to have Detective Gruce in our squad. She teaches people. She helps. She's a real team player. It just went on and on and on. And then it said, and we're going to put her on the list for promotion. That's what her 2021 evaluation said. And then came COVID, and she would not comply. It was unbelievable to hear Sergeant Arbuthnot, the man who we are to believe laid the charge against her on his own decision. I find that difficult to believe. But he said...
I think he was told by somebody to do it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, look,
we don't know which exactly it was. Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't ring true to me. He said it under oath, but it doesn't ring true to me. Of course, Inspector O'Toole's notes that he had he met with Inspector O'Toole and another sergeant to discuss the charge, but he claimed he had made his mind up before. Of course, Inspector O'Toole's notes seem to have gone missing, so, you know, who knows? So there you go. Yeah. But that was his testimony produced gasps also. A full courtroom every day. And I'm going to paraphrase here, and I was allowed to record everything because I'm a journalist. And so I've done the auto transcribing, and I'm going to be writing major articles for the next 3 weeks about various issues that came to light at the trial. But one thing that the sergeant said was that, and I paraphrase, police officers should just do as they're told, and that it is not up to the individual police officer to judge the lawfulness of any order they are given. What?
Okay.
I think we had something called Nuremberg, right? Where a person at even the lowliest private must make a decision as to whether an order given to him is lawful or not. And that's what Nuremberg was all about. But we had this sergeant swearing under oath that ordinary police officers are not allowed to make a decision as to whether or not an order given to them is lawful. They have to run it up the flagpole, get legal advice or anything like that. According to the sergeant, the individual cannot make that decision, and that is absolute hooey. But it just shows the culture of the police. Don't forget, this is the man who is trusted by the executive to set the standards, to investigate, to impose the standards, and to charge police officers if necessary. So this is what this man is saying as a reflection of, I believe, the culture of that police force. You will do as you are told, you will obey orders, and you will not question. Well, okay. There we go. So, look, I'm going to get right to the chase here. Because you will be absolutely flabbergasted, astonished because of what happened on Friday. This prosecutor was not the original prosecutor on the case. She had been she had replaced the original prosecutor sometime in the fall, and this was her case. And we couldn't understand why she was so argumentative, why she did things that were just incredible, like objecting to questions before they were said. In one 2-hour period, the defense only was able to ask 3 questions of one witness. All the other time, and they were basically yes or no questions, all the other time was spent arguing and procedures and interruptions by this prosecutor. Very interesting. So on Friday, we have the third and final witness for this 5 days. There's going to be many more witnesses and many more days starting in October. But we have the third and final witness, and she is a detective in the SACA unit. She worked with Detective Gruce. And boy, did the defense just went after this detective and destroyed her credibility, absolutely destroyed it, because she had been spying on Detective Gruce and giving reports to her boss that were just absolute nonsense. They were just falsehoods made up. Give you an example. In one report, this detective said that Detective Gruce had said that in the vaccines, there are little particles that are transmitters so the government can follow you around. Now, Detective Gruce had already put in an email report to the chief and everyone else, a very professional email that I told you about worrying about the side effects of the vax and the injuries and the harms and things like that. And in the email, she said, leave no doubt, I believe there is a COVID virus and people do get sick from it, but I want to know about this. This is very professional. But this was what I'll call tinfoil hat. It's not the only example. All sorts of examples that were false, that were no doubt about it, they were false. And it was just part of this pile on to Detective Gruce, this setting her apart from the squad and attacking her. Really, the pack just attacked her. So anyway, this witness is just being eviscerated by the legal team, and the prosecutor is standing up and just every word interrupting, and we didn't understand until we learned that the witness and the prosecutor are sister-in-laws.
Okay.
They reported, they replaced the prosecutor. And don't forget, they have 4 or 5 or 6 lawyers on staff at the Ottawa Police. They can get anyone they wanted. But they replaced the prosecutor with someone who was able to facilitate a defense for her sister-in-law. Okay? Now, I thought, oh my gosh, this is an undeclared conflict of interest. This is terrible. But it turned out that a month before, 2 months before, the judge had known about it and had ruled on it and said it was okay.
Now that sounds familiar.
What? Now, look, I have lots of friends who are lawyers, and I have one lawyer. He's a King's Counsel, very senior lawyer, many decades. And when I told him that story and what had happened, he said, full stop. The reputation of the Ottawa Police Force, Ottawa Police Service, of the judge, of the prosecutor, of the whole process and the investigation has just been brought into disrepute. Full stop.
Okay.
The public must be informed about what the judge, the decision that the judge made, And frankly, if this were a criminal trial, it would be absolutely a case for a new trial or throw it out, most likely.
I would think so.
The fact that they would assign a family member, knowingly assign a family member as the prosecutor when there were other choices, says everything. It's corrupt, it's reprehensible, and it has absolutely destroyed the reputation of the Ottawa police. The prosecutor and the judge had brought it all into disrepute, which is exactly what Detective Bruce is charged with, isn't it?
Exactly. Now, the police force and the judge, they've done this to themselves. I suppose what I need to ask, and I don't know if you even have an opinion on this, but the fake pandemic is over. It's all said and done. They're probably going to bring another one back either later this year or early next year. But what now does the Ottawa Police Department have to gain by letting this farce continue? Is there any gain whatsoever to them, considering it's all over?
I think it's all downhill from here. And I really do think it's all downhill. So this trial has garnered worldwide interest. I just did an interview with an Israeli show. I'm doing one with Japan tomorrow. Christian television also tomorrow. BBC on Thursday. South Africa. This
Wow.
is just crazy. This thing has exploded, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, the actual subject of the investigation, the fact that we now have entered in evidence, the Pfizer documents, all sorts of other documents and evidence showing the connection between the mother's vaccination status and the injuries and deaths of babies. Wow, we have that. So that's part of this trial. And there will be expert medical witnesses. We learned that during the trial too. But the judge may not approve them. Oh, isn't that something? Of course.
I don't think any medical expert who's on our side is going to be allowed to speak, period. I think they're all going to be either excused or sternly lectured by the judge and tossed out the door.
We will see. But the other bigger for policing, the other issue is this. Do police officers have the authority and the duty and the right to initiate any investigation they want, or can they be told to not investigate or directed by political agendas and politicians? And that's what we have here. Don't forget, in the West, United Kingdom, America, Canada, when Sir Robert Peel set up the original police force, because it was all corrupt, it was all just thugs doing what the politicians said, he set up the original police force in Britain, and they called the police officers peelers. And so he set that up. The community is the police are the community, but a big part of it was the independence of individual officers to investigate according to their duty, their oath of office, and their professional judgment. Okay? I've had situations in the Toronto Police, for instance. My squad were told to leave all the tour boats in the harbor, Toronto Harbor, alone and not charge them with liquor offenses. Well, there was a whole industry there, and none of them were licensed, and they were just serving booze. Well, you don't tell us to not charge an offense under the law, and we kicked that politician out of our office, and we went and we raided the harbor, the boats in the harbor, and we kept on doing it. And then they changed the law and allowed the licensing. Well, that's the way it's supposed to be. Rule of law. The law is everything. So that's what it is. But we didn't allow politicians to tell us what to do. And in this case, Detective Bruce is being punished for not obeying, for not complying, and for failing to obey a political agenda.
I disagree, Donald. This is not
Okay.
isolated. This has happened before.
Sure, we know that. Sure, all the time. It's a constant battle. But what I'm saying is, here, this case, it has come to the fore as an issue. And they've dug their heels in. It's almost like tripling down on corruption now that everything is being revealed. What will happen? Will they use what happened on Friday as an excuse to just dump the case? I don't know.
Couple points I got to make. June 20th, 2019, right on, was it on Queen Street by Bay, when they tried to kill Jack Reynolds. Antifa tried to kill him. There was 20 cops watching this happen. We filed a police report the following day. 2 months later, the detective is working on it. Says, yeah, he looked at it. It's a civil case. So attempted murder in Toronto is a civil case. Had I not been there, and I got jumped and pounded too, but had I not been there at that moment, Jack would have been killed on the streets, right on Queen Street, Main Street. Hundreds, not a few, hundreds of video cameras, security cameras. Nothing was done. It was a civil case. That's what they told me, the Toronto police.
Ed, it's the same thing with me being attacked by 7 members of Antifa live on Facebook. The cops showed up conveniently in the middle of the fight because they were watching and let them all go. And then they took a police report from me, I don't know, 3 weeks later, and did nothing. That's just how it is. All right, Donald, we have a couple of other guests waiting to come on in. So do you have any concluding statements on this? I want to hear what you guys say. What's your closing remark on the Ottawa police charging one of their own for investigating the deaths caused by needles? Go ahead.
This case is tremendously important to all Canadians and to Canadian police officers, because the question that will be answered is, do Canadian police officers have the autonomy, as they do in law, and the duty to investigate crimes or anything else they want without being subject to political agendas? That's the real question we have here. And if they find her guilty, it is such a blow to the independence of police officers all over this country. And if we have politicians directing the actions of police officers, well, justice just goes out the window.
I could not agree more with that statement. We were always told that in Canada, mayors and city councilors and whatnot have no say over what the police do. But I think that we know very differently, don't we? It's sad that we're all being told, well, sorry, you and police are being told not to do their job, and we're expecting police to do their job, and the police are being turned against us. Well, you and I have both spent time in Canadian prisons for just telling the truth. It's kind of crazy how that happens. Donald, how do people find you online?
DonaldBest.ca is my website, DonaldBest.ca.
Thank you, Jay.
Also on Twitter. Now, DonaldBest.ca, my website, we do some long form investigations there, a lot of material there, and it's all about the evidence. Day to day, you'll find me on Twitter, DonaldBestCA, at DonaldBestCA on Twitter.
You can all see that right now overlapping the blue guitar. Have a look. There it is. Twitter, Donald Best CA. Donald,
there we go.
Pleasure as always. It's so remarkable to have you come in here and tell us these things, because nobody has more insight than you into police corruption. Thank you for doing so.
Well, you're very welcome. And now I'm going to go to the wings and watch the rest of the show, because this is going to be a great show. The guests you have lined up tonight and the topics. I had a little sample of that during our pre-show. So I'll be here watching.
Wonderful. You're always welcome. Thank you. Take care. That's Donald Best, everybody. All right. So, well, I find it bizarre, Eddie, when we've got police not listening to police. You know how we always believe that they never let a brother cop go down, that cops don't snitch on the cops, that cops don't do anything whatsoever to hurt each other?
Blue line.
Well, yeah, I know. It's just obviously it's not true. And the part that sucks is that Donald Best, as a former police officer, he was fibbing. No, sorry, not fibbing. He was talking about the fibs the other cops were saying. He was exposing the fibs. Thank you. And he went to prison for that. And that's just the system just appears to have one set agenda. And the second you walk outside of it, guess what happens? You get locked up. And as for John, yes, Twitter for some reason is called X now. I don't care. I'm still blocked from it. So whoopee doo. Now we got to talk about no, don't you dare say one more thing. All right. Because we got to move on. We got two more guests coming on the show tonight.
Kevin,
we
just hang on. We just had an ex-cop on. Let's get an ex-prison guard on.
Oh, that's what you wanted to say.
Yes. Good friend of ours.
Good. I'm turning you off. All right. Everyone, we've got to talk very briefly here about this right here on the bottom of the screen. Sexual orientation and gender identity. It's essentially propaganda saying that we are perverts and we want to do things to your kids and we want your kids to be compliant. That's my interpretation of it. Well, Mark Friesen has run for public office in Saskatchewan, and I've had a number of opportunities to speak to him on the phone in the past and on this show and in person. Welcome back to the show, Mark Friesen. It's so good to see you, sir. All right. Tell people who you are and how you got involved in all this. Go ahead.
Well, so I've been at this game for well over 20 years. Of course, SOGI is relative to Agenda 2030, prior known as Agenda 21. SOGI was a program created by the UN and being implemented across this country and throughout the West to confuse our kids through their educational journey. But by the time they graduate, they'll be so confused that they won't want to necessarily join traditional family values or the nuclear family. So all of this SOGI stuff is part of Agenda 2030. It's all connected. And so we've been raising awareness in regards to SOGI in this province for months. I'm associated with a provincial party called the Buffalo Party of Saskatchewan, and we've actually incorporated the rejection of SOGI and the rejection of Agenda 2030 as party policy. And so, we've been pounding this pavement, railing against SOGI and its curriculum for months. And here's the thing. So I worked in corrections for 25 years. I worked alongside many sexual predators that, it's like a revolving door in the prison system. And I can tell you that predominantly most of the sexual predators were sexualized as children and turned into monsters, of course. Well, this is exactly what SOGI is going to do to our children. It will sexualize our children and turn them into monsters as they get older, moving through puberty and into adulthood. And so we found it extremely serious, this issue of sexualizing our kids in the school system. And really what it is it's indoctrination. It's ultimately part of the depopulation agenda, because if you can confuse the kids through their educational journey, and they don't join traditional family values or the nuclear family and procreate, then the globalists have won. And this is what's behind SOGI. This is to confuse the kids as much as absolutely possible so they don't procreate, so that they don't join that nuclear family. So it's been a long battle. Today we got some phenomenal news through the pressure from the Buffalo Party and Sask United Party, which is both alternative parties to the establishment. We've managed to help support parents and parental rights in our schools, and so this all sort of came to a head a number of weeks ago in a town called Lumsden, Saskatchewan, where Planned Parenthood came in and they presented to the kids, grade 9 students, sexual acts in the form of playing cards from A to Z. And I can't even repeat a lot of the sexual acts that were included in these playing cards because, it's thoroughly disgusting.
What age?
So that,
Mark, what age group's got the cards?
grade 9.
It's okay. It's still too young. It's like you're 14, 15 in grade 9.
Yeah. So that lit everybody's hair on fire in Lumsden, which is a good thing, and parents were very concerned. And here's the kicker. So Planned Parenthood, the people that were there presenting this material, they told the students not to go home and tell their parents what they're issuing to these students. And of course, naturally, a number of the students went back home and brought these cards home and showed their parents. And the parents, of course, like I said, lit their hair on fire and demanded that this sort of material cease and desist being brought to our kids in our schools. And so as this was happening, I managed to get a website link which showed these cards, and like I said, disgusting material. And so I posted it on Twitter. It got 4.1 million views. And the next day, Dustin Duncan, the education minister, announced that they'll be banning Planned Parenthood from our schools. So that's where all of this stuff came to a head. And so we kept hammering on the government. For example, how didn't you know that Planned Parenthood was presenting this to grade 9 students? Disgusting material. And so they claimed they didn't know, and that's their responsibility to know. So we hammered them pretty heavily for a number of weeks. And then of course we brought in SOGI into the discussion, because SOGI is doing exactly the same thing. It's sexualizing our kids and teaching our kids this curriculum that is meant to confuse kids and push them to this gender ideology, where now everybody in school wants to transition to some other gender. And so we think this is very dangerous for our kids. We think it's sick, and it shouldn't be part of our school curriculum. So we've been pounding the pavement on this for weeks, along with, as I said, the Sask United Party. They've been a strong voice in this as well. And so finally today, Dustin Duncan, the education minister, announced that there'll be no third party involvement in the curriculum at schools, including this ARC Foundation, which is a foundation created to support SOGI 123. And they also denounced SOGI being part of school curriculum in this province. So we consider today a big win.
That's a huge win, Mark. It's a very huge win. And for any teenagers watching the show now, I'm just going to come right out and say it. The Canadian education system is 100% useless. It was useless when I went through it, but it is worse now. It has nothing to do with education. What we have is a whole bunch of perverts that want to convince you that you should be touching them. And I'm going to tell you something. 50-year-old men like me and Mark should not be touching anybody under the age of even 25, right? That would be interfering with your capacity to grow up your own way and learn for yourself, having relationships with individuals your own age. We would be taking that away from you. I'm very happy that when I was 18, 19, 20, I didn't have somebody interfering with my capacity to decide for myself what a good relationship was and what it was not. So I recommend to every teenager watching, every parent watching right now who has kids in any Canadian school, take them out. Get out of the schools. Don't go. If you stay away from any school, for example, in Ontario for 10 days or more, they lose their funding for you. That's tens of thousands of dollars. Stay away from these institutions until guys like Mark over here, pop up in every city to start taking it away, because Mark is only one man. He can't do it all. So, Mark, what was the reaction that you got from the government agencies when they decided to pull this? Did they actually tell you, or did they just quietly disappear into the night? Go ahead.
No, they made a formal announcement today that they'll be banning, excuse me, this ARC Foundation and SOGI 123. They made that announcement. They have been sort of hiding from the issue up until today. We've been screaming from the rooftops. Again, the Buffalo Party has it installed as party policy to reject SOGI 123. And, in the last election, the Buffalo Party ran 17 candidates and came in second in every one of the ridings that they ran in. So, we're offering the people of Saskatchewan an alternative to the establishment, and they're feeling that heat. The Saskatchewan Party, that the ruling party, they're feeling that heat, not only from us, the Buffalo Party, but also from the Sask United Party. So we have two alternatives to the establishment in this province, and so they're feeling that pressure. And every town hall that I'm at, of course, SOGI comes up because it's part of Agenda 2030, and that's my whole lane. I've been working on this for, like I said, over 20 years, and so this is part of that. And so we kept pounding away at the premier, wondering why they've committed to this agenda, SOGI, that was created by an unelected, unaccountable foreign entity that is meant to destroy our youth. And so it seems that they've finally sort of grasped the importance of this issue. And it's like Dustin Duncan said, our education minister said today in his press release, that if we need to get parental permission to send our kids on a field trip to the science center, then we should also be taking this issue just as seriously when it comes to parental rights and what the parents want taught to their kids. It's extremely important. And now it seems, as I said, that the provincial government here in Saskatchewan has finally clued in and understands the magnitude of what this agenda represents to our youth. And they've listened to the parents. The parents were up in arms across the province, and I've done a number of town halls throughout this province, and I can tell you that the majority of parents in this province are not happy with the implementation of SOGI. So the government's responded in kind.
Wonderful. Mark, I appreciate what you're doing here. I love you for what you're doing, pal. Thank you very much for sticking with it.
I don't have a choice, man. It's my duty. I have to do this. We all have to do this.
Well, we all do, but you know what, though? You've gone above and beyond, and above and beyond most. So thank you for that. How do people reach you online if they want more information about how to defeat SOGI?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at markfriesen08. I have a website, ffcs.info, and they can reach out to me, of course, on Facebook or wherever. You can find me. I have a couple of different identities on Facebook, Mark Friesen, and Canada First, and Mark Friesen Saskatoon Grasswood is on Facebook as well as Forum for Canadian Sovereignty is on Facebook, and Mark Friesen Buffalo Party of Saskatchewan. So any one of those platforms, anybody can reach out and get in touch with me. But I just want to say, I want to give credit where credit is due. The Sask United Party played a big role in all of this. They held a town hall event in Lumsden and spoke to this issue. And Nadine Ness has done some great work in this province in regards to SOGI and denouncing of SOGI. Tanya Gaw with Canada Action. She's done some great work. Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson has been, raising the flag on this issue for a long time. So there's a lot of people that have helped us apply pressure in this situation that we were in Saskatchewan. And I'm hopeful that other provinces also see what Saskatchewan has done. And I've said this for a while, Kevin, that Albertans like to think that they're the most conservative province in this country. I disagree based on demographics. In Saskatchewan, we're well over 50% rural, and it's the rural folks that are going to pull us out of this mess. And it's the rural folks that said no to SOGI and no to having this perverted curriculum in our education system. And they've stood up and they've said no. And the Sask party gets elected through rural Saskatchewan. So we have to inspire, motivate people in rural areas of this province and in Alberta and in Manitoba and in BC and Northern Ontario, wherever the case may be, and get people to stand up and say no, because this agenda, this SOGI curriculum is just so dangerous for our kids. We don't have a choice. We have to say no.
Mark, you're the best, man. Thanks for being here. Certainly appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.
Take care, my friend. That's Mark Friesen, everybody. He's done a lot of work with the PPC party in the past. He's done a lot of work politically, mostly in situations as what you've just heard here, helping we, the people, take back a little bit of what we, the people, used to have, and that is the freedom to be away from perverts on a 24-hour basis. And that's pretty much what Canada has become. I'm shocked at just how eager our Prime Minister, Jihadi Johnston, is to be involved with everything as perverse as possible. He actually has chosen drag queens who don't give him any money over top of all of the Islamic groups in Canada, which do give him not hundreds of thousands, but millions of dollars. He's out of his mind. And unfortunately, we have a lot of left-wing nut jobs just like him who are also out of their minds, poisoning our children through the schools, which is why I still maintain that everybody in a publicly funded school in Canada needs to be out of those schools now. Leave them as empty buildings. Let them rot. Teachers in this country make way too much money. They're all six figures. They make way too much money for what they do. And they simply don't care enough about your children to fight these evil mandates that Mark has now quashed in Saskatchewan. So again, thanks, Mark. Mike Martins is here, everybody. Mike, welcome to the show. Mike Martins, of course, runs the Saturday show, Mike in the Night. Awesome hat, brother. Let's hear it.
I don't know if I could keep up with the guests tonight. You got an amazing lineup. I don't even know, I guess I'll clean up a little bit.
If you're going to be insecure about it, get the hell out of here. Bye. Come on back in. All right.
Okay. So you know how Europe is usually, I want to kind of add, I wasn't going to read this article tonight because it's disturbing, but I want to add to the last gentleman that was on. I want to kind of chain rail a little bit here. You know how Europe is usually a little bit ahead on trends. Europe is usually a little bit ahead on certain patterns, music, movies, whatever trends.
About
fashion.
2 years ahead of us on fashion as well.
Sure. Well, this is coming out in Germany if you want to share my screen.
Yeah, let's share. What do you got?
German kindergartners promote sexual exploration rooms where children are encouraged to masturbate and touch each other. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on here, but I don't know. Like hold on, and here's the article. There's a source. It's in German, and I'm not going to scroll down because it looks pretty bad. And I kind of wanted to add, I wasn't going to say this tonight, but this is so disturbing. And that last gentleman is putting up a strong fight and a very important fight that must be fought. We've been fighting it all Mike in the Night, but it's getting to a point. I'm scared to show this on your show because there are going to be people in like these sickos in Canada that are going to be, oh, this is a great idea. We should bring this to Canada too. But I'm almost afraid to show this. You know what I mean?
Don't, because we don't need the headaches. Mike, we really don't. Okay, everyone. So what we have here then is there's a book that I read. It's an incredibly disturbing book. This one here, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And this book, what was the date on when this one came out? This is 1931. Okay, 1931. Aldous Huxley had written about a future. Actually, let me just take that title off. I can't even look at it. He was talking about a future where children were not even allowed to wear clothes for the first 5 to 7 years of their lives, and they were encouraged to touch each other so that the entire society that they were raising was all about sexual perversions all the time. Everybody was hooked on drugs because it was a post-scarcity society, and you were not legally allowed to turn down anybody's sexual advances. The slogan for society in that book is everybody belongs to everybody else. That is exactly what Germany's doing. Now, Mike, I got to reflect on this also. And Stefanos, you and I talked about this a couple times. Yeah, before World War I, this is exactly what Germany was doing. All right, you could travel to any German city in 1890, 1898, 1904, 1910. And if you said, I want to have sex with the following, I would like an elephant, a giraffe, 3 babies, a woman, a man, and you. And you could have it. It didn't matter where you went. What did that lead us to? It led us to an ultra-conservative guy, Adolf Hitler, who was so turned off by all of that, he actually killed everybody who was responsible for it, and then went ahead and did his thing. So we are always in danger when we go down these roads of having another Adolf Hitler surface to combat it. It's disgusting. Okay, Mike, continue. What's next?
Okay, this is a big one, and we brought this up on your show. I brought this up on your show back in 2021. China has at least 65 million empty homes, enough to house the population of France. It offers a glimpse into the country's massive housing market problem. Well, what's happening? Well, it's major. As China's property crisis, this is today now, as China's property crisis plagues its economy and financial system, is a Lehman moment looming. So China Evergrande Group reported losses of 812 billion yuan, that's 112 billion US dollars, for 2021 and 2022, while fellow property developer Country Garden is on the verge of a bond default, which has been bailed out by the Chinese Communist Party several times, by the way. And so-called Lehman movement, so if people remember what happened in 2008 in the United States of America, where one company's problem became everyone's problem, is as unlikely, but mounting problems are set to test Beijing. So this is a major problem that they've been kind of sidestepping for the longest time. And I'm going to tell you why I think they are dragging this inevitable crash. Because they got to get the digital currency out there. And once the digital currency is out there, you can't pull your money out of the banks. You're going to have to move money around in different assets, or move money around into different toxic assets, from what I'm looking at here, and it doesn't look good. And that's why this is already in the making for years. But I guess if they get the digital currency and people can't take their money and buy gold and silver, or can't, because once you buy gold in China, you get written up. You buy gold 3 times in China, you get written up multiple times, right? And that gets sent to the Communist Party or something, or it goes into a file. They don't do nothing right now, but it could come to a point where they're going to start taxing you on gold reserves in your own home. So I don't know. I'm just thinking that they're dragging this crash so they can get the digital currency implemented.
Well, it does make sense, but they also have to drag the crash so that the rest of the world believes that they are still an economic power. I've been making a number of videos about China in general on Instagram and TikTok. One of them hit 334,000 views as of yesterday, mainly because there's a lot of people curious about what's going on in China, and we're not getting the goods. And the only reporters that seem to get it right are you, me, and the Epoch Times, and nobody else. It's kind of bizarre how that works. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You got to come to a guy in a black T-shirt for real news, and a guy in a crazy hat for real news, and a guy who's addicted to cigarettes for real news. So, all right, what's our next headline? Go ahead.
All right, speaking of real news, leaked documents show American doctors were financially rewarded for pushing the COVID jab. We did cover this back in 2021. It's I don't know why it's resurfacing, but it is making headlines now. And millions of Americans were advised by their doctors to get vaccinated for the Wuhan coronavirus COVID-19, not because they actually care about the patients, mind you, because they were bribed. And here is the leaked document that we brought this up, but now it's making headlines again. So there is from Blue Cross Insurance and Blue Shield Medical. COVID-19 provider incentive program. So there it is. And they were already projecting by December 31st, 2021, what doctors will be getting in bonuses per client or per customer, and how basically they will be rewarded heavily. And I just thought I'd bring that up, even though it's old news.
Mike, send me that document, please. I want to read that one from cover to cover.
Sure, yeah. This is something we brought up on Mike of the Night in 2021, and I don't know why it's just resurfaced this week. It doesn't. I don't know. It's just something. I guess I'll bring it back up again.
Yeah, whatever it is, though, send it to me because I really do need to go through that one. Absolutely.
Sure, no problem. Sure, no problem.
Okay, so Mike, I got a number of questions here. We got some folks just asking us. You're close to the fires, the staged and arson fires taking place in British Columbia currently. You're in the town of Merritt, and that seems to be in between a couple of fires. What's going on out there?
Well, I was going to go to the articles up here, but that I have already selected, but that's okay. I
just want to get your take on it because you have to endure it. I was on the phone with you today. You were in the car. You couldn't see 5 feet in front of you, so you had to pull over to the side of the road and almost push your car. Oh, what's going on?
Well, what's going on is very simple. It's plain as day arson, and more people are getting taken into custody and then mysteriously released. And it was happening in Northern Ontario, where they're taken into custody and then released. And it's too perfect. It's a perfect fire. It's too perfect. There's too many areas. It's specific strategic points being hit through the time period. It's all at the same time, and it's all perfectly planned. And they were looking at I could see them looking at the forecast, seeing when is the best time to let this go. If it's not going to rain, if it's gonna, they're trying to find the driest spell humanly possible. They're calling it dry thunder. They're making up names as they go along, and they keep renegotiating what people could do. My problem is there's a fire in my town. I'm very limited to what roads I could take to get the hell out of here. So I'm really, I got to be really careful. And one thing I'm afraid of, and I'm going to bring this up in the articles here, is they could just shut our water off in a second if they wanted to. And I'm afraid of a lot of this. So right now, as we speak, it's kind of starting to die down. They got a little bit of rain in Kelowna yesterday, and we got a little bit of rain forecasted for tomorrow. So it's starting to billow away. You can start seeing the sky again today. And I was grateful for that.
Eddie, what's up?
Mike, just because they shut the water off in Lahaia, Maui, doesn't mean they're going to do it in BC, does it?
Well, if it's been done somewhere else. I got an article I'm going to bring up about that. That guy's trying to be a peace winner or a Nobel Peace Prize winner for saving water that day. Yeah. It was a Babylon Bee article, but yeah.
Okay. But just to remind everybody, there were town councils in the province of Alberta when we had our arson fires taking place where they were not allowed to use water, and the RCMP were kicking people off their own land. People were digging fire breaks in between the forest and their land. The cops were saying, no, you can't be here. Why? Because they wanted people gone, letting them break into people's houses and take their guns. And that's the problem with the RCMP in Alberta.
Well, we had a problem here, Kevin, in 2018-ish, 2019, but that got kind of brushed over, was the church burnings. We got I told this to you, 2 of our churches burned to the ground locally, and 2 of them they attempted to burn to the ground. So it was 4 total. And they just brushed it off like it was nobody's business. They know who it is. They know where he lives. They just don't want to deal with it. Can't make this stuff up.
Next article. What do you got?
Atlanta. Oh, no. Hold on a sec. Yeah. Atlanta-based Morris Brown College says they are reinstating COVID mask mandates. So basically, it ties back to a video.
I just got this article an hour and a half before showtime. You beat me to it. Good for you.
Well, no, I beat everyone to it because 11 months ago, I found a video where we were telling them they're going to bring this back because when all else fails, when the whole pandemic starts to fizzle out, forest fires come in, all right? Global warming comes in. Climate's world is boiling. We're going into winter. They're going to go back down to mandated masks. When all else fails, go to climate change. When that fails, flow chart. Follow the flow chart. Mandated mask lockdowns. Flow chart.
Yeah, this was the email that came out. Effective immediately, Morris Brown College has reinstated its COVID-19 mask mandate due to reports of positive cases among students in the Atlanta University Center. Over the next 14 days, the following protocols will be in place: mask wearing, physical distancing, no large gatherings, isolation and quarantine, contact tracing again, and symptom monitoring. Oh, Lord. That's just one school, but believe me, there will be more. Go ahead.
So basically, this ties back to a video we made early this February of this year. Enjoy the summer coming up in 2023 because they're going to lock you down. They're going to lock you down in the winter at end of 2023, and they're going to bring this back. It's all in this vicious cycle. Maybe they might add something to the cycle, like, I don't know, something better or more believable. But the alien invasion thing's falling apart real quick, so I don't think that's going to fly. So they're going to have to figure something else.
Yeah,
so
monkeypox didn't work. They tried
that
that
was 2
one.
weeks.
Yeah, that didn't work. And then you're saying, yes, our government has, we have reports of UFOs and we have reclaimed UFOs, and that went nowhere. That was like 20 days, maybe. And now it's got no media play at all.
Yeah.
None. Huh. Continue.
Okay, major. This is major because this is in the Commonwealth. So English-speaking country. Australia's transition to cashless society raises concern about financial exclusion, privacy, and safety. Now, Australia is going full blast on this. And Australia went so full blast on this that they were actually removing bank machines from some of their major cities. Can you hear me, Kevin? Because I can't see myself.
I hear you just fine. I hear you fine.
So there's a major issue happening there where they were even removing bank machines in rural areas so people couldn't take cash out and start getting used to not using cash on a regular basis. So this is what's happening there, and it is crazy what they're doing, and they're going to go on full on, and they're hoping by November, December of this year to be fully digital. So we got to keep our eyes on Australia because they have the same housing market like Canada has, where they sold out to the highest bidders. Foreign investors parking money, the whole 9 yards. Australia is still a blueprint of what happened in Canada with the whole money laundering scheme and money empty units across Canada and Australia. They're fighting the same battle. So is New Zealand, and so is the UK. But I just
wanted to have Stefanos. You and I were having a laugh today about the American border in Niagara Falls. Could you just let us all know what you saw today?
Oh God! So I was down in the falls doing some stuff, and as I was coming around the corner where the casino, the first one was, to try to enter the parkway, there was a jam, a traffic jam, as far as you could see either way, and backing right out to the highway. So I couldn't get to the parkway, which was literally maybe 50 feet from me. And it took me around 30 minutes or so to get into that little short space. And as soon as I got in the parkway, you seen all the lanes were open. Niagara Falls, it was busy, but it's not anywhere near what Niagara Falls used to be busy at this time of year. And there was nothing but cars. All that traffic going to the highway and down the parkway and everything was all cars leaving Canada and going to the USA. So, and they were
that distance from either the Rainbow Bridge is in Niagara Falls that goes into Niagara Falls, New York. How long was the line of cars? How many kilometers of cars were lined up to cross the U.S. border?
Oh God! I like I said, as far as your eye could see, and in three directions was all cars going to the border. So it had to be, as far as I could see, I don't know, kilometers. How many? Good question. It probably backed up all the way onto that highway where the cutoff is to go to the border there. Probably, who knows? 5 kilometers.
Hear that everyone's taking their money and running. Yeah, there you go. Mike, what's our next headline? Go ahead.
All right. So this is Castanet reporting. Fewer than 190 structures lost, damage in McDougall Creek fire. That's in West Kelowna there. And fewer than 100 in the regional district. West Kelowna Fire Chief has completed its rapid damage assessment and also worked with RCMP to confirm that there has been no loss of life and there are no outstanding missing people. So they lost quite a few structures. And unfortunately, because it's in Canada, everything's multi-million dollars. So the average American will look at some of these homes and say, I could buy that for 90 grand in Florida. What are you talking about, Mike? Yeah, but that's $2 million in Canada. So there's a lot of multi-million dollar structures that are gone, and insurance companies are obviously going to have to find a way not to pay. So prayers to the people there. And then we got your friend here, Kevin. Justin Trudeau's Online News Act has caused a news blackout as wildfires rage. So this could be that whole theory I've been thinking, how I think it's best it's a win-win situation for Canadian media not to be on Facebook and Instagram, and they're going to move towards YouTube, and they're going to move towards all the other platforms, because I think they want to darken us inside this country like Cuba. So you don't know what's happening outside, and people don't know what's happening in your country. So I see Canada trying to become more of a Cuba, where it's all isolated within the country and people outside don't know our struggle.
Mike, I have a different outlook on that. I'm actually very happy that they're blacking out Canadian media, because we all know they're fake news. So what percentage are they actually putting out there that's real? Like, I'm going to say 5 to less than 5%. And this is just a communist dictatorship attempting to control everything that has mistakenly blacked themselves out and stopped their propaganda machine that they paid, over $600 million to do their bidding for them. So I'm glad this happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
No worries.
You know what, Mike, I'm just going to add a bit to that, in that Facebook is no longer allowing CBC or CTV, City TV, Toronto Star, Calgary Herald, Vancouver Dead Whale Carcass, all these ridiculous media outlets that do nothing but lie. Now they can't be found in Canada on Facebook. I think it's a wonderful thing. I was talking with James Sears about that, and James Sears is the guy in Ontario who did a year in jail for cracking woman jokes in his newspaper. Well, he was saying the same thing. It's wonderful that Facebook and Instagram and a couple of others will no longer be allowing major Canadian media outlets to have their news be seen in Canada on their platform. So it would mean that CBC has to kind of just give up on their Instagram and Facebook pages. I'm wondering if YouTube is going to follow. I really do wonder that.
YouTube eventually will follow Twitter and all the other major platforms. They're testing it out with this. Now, here's a little inside info. In 2008 and 9, Australia actually pulled the same stunt. Yes, they did. We covered it on our channel. Australia pulled the same stunt that they're doing now. So now they're going to kind of watch it as it goes, because I think Canada wants to be, not me. I want the fake news to be exposed. I want people to look at Canada and laugh and say, look what they're trying to play off in Canada, right? So that's me. I'd like to do, of course. But the problem is, I think we're going to be like a Cuba. I think they're going to have it in a way where we can't get our information out, and we can't really see what's happening on the outside world. And apparently they're doing it to American news media in the States, from what I've heard. Some American news media is getting blacked out on Facebook and Instagram in the US. So I think they're trial testing. They're using Canada as a country. They're using a few few media companies in the States. They've already tried it in Australia in 2017, 2018. So this is something they've been kind of messing around with the ingredients to see what they could do, right?
Yeah, well,
they have been doing that. Yes, Cogeco is one of them that we're running tests. My good buddy, Dr. Rona, he tried to go on to one of his guitar sites that he goes to, Long and McQuaid, and he could never access it. Then he finally called up his provider, and sure enough, lo and behold, they had that site blocked. So these were tests that they were doing.
All right. Okay,
Mike,
so
what is next here? Go ahead.
Okay, this is very important for people. Meta pays supposedly independent Australian fact checkers $800 per fact check. 8 bills.
Okay. My interpretation of that is $800 in Australian dollars for each and every time they just decide to take something down. Is that it?
There it is. Those who doubt the fact checking is an industry created around the push for internet censorship that's been going on these last years might be persuaded otherwise by information that emerged from a lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed by Australian-based reporter and commentator A.V. Yemeni, and it reveals that the amount of money changing hands between Facebook Meta and its notorious fact checkers, whose purpose is supposed to be weeding out the misinformation and who are supposed to be independent. However, these efforts disturbingly often end up in plain censorship of disfavored opinion on political and social issues.
My question is this, all right? And it's the obvious, glaring question that nobody's asked. Why the hell would, I'm going to throw Rebel Media into it too. We got Rebel Media, The Sun, The Stars, CBC, CTV, all these different companies. Why have they not one of them, or why don't they all get together and bring a challenge against this bill against the government, which makes no sense to me because that's your constitutional right there.
With the exception of Rebel, they've all been paid and bribed by the Canadian government. So why would they bite the hand that throws them free cash? I mean, eventually all those media outlets will crash anyway. They will crash.
But the point is, this is a constitutional right we have, period. And you do not need to have any requirement as accredited media. That's been already proven in the courts. An independent social guy, a citizen journalist say that's media, regardless. And you do not require any accreditation or registration or to pay any freaking fee.
Here's the good news, because you guys know I always tell you the truth here. There hasn't been a single letter sent to me by any branch of government yet telling me that I cannot be a media personality or Canada's best looking man without a license. Now, that's not yet. They haven't sent that yet. But I'll see what happens in the future. Mike, what's our next headline?
The UN is building a digital army to fight what it calls deadly disinformation.
Oh, for God's sakes.
So this is a big one. This is actually a big one, and I brought this up on your show last time I was on, and they are starting to implement. So the UN is tripling down on its role as an important global player in the fight. Now, it's primarily France. So if people are wondering, France is like spearheading this, banning Twitter from Europe, banning Rumble from Europe, banning everything from Europe. It's Macron and his goons, right?
Yeah.
Important global player, fight against online misinformation and amplification of the narrative of supposedly serious threat this allegedly new phenomena brings to humankind. The UN peacekeepers are adding another task to the duties the member states fund when they approve their missions meant to help people and countries devastated by war and other disasters. They are now also building a digital army. And according to the write-up on the UN website, it's on the UN website, I double-checked, misinformation is viewed by the World Organization in exceedingly alarmist terms as deadly and posing existential risk to such core building blocks of modern societies as democratic institutions and fundamental human rights.
Okay, good. Then I'm going to reflect on that one. The United Nations did nothing but lie in 2017 and 2018 about Myanmar. And I'm the one that went to the war zone in Myanmar to disprove the existence of the Rohingya people, which we did, to show that it was not the Burmese army that was doing the slaughtering. It was not the Buddhists doing the slaughtering. We proved that. And we also had all the footage, and we showed it while we were still legally allowed to show it, of the United Nations having only sent supplies to the Islamic terror groups and not to anybody else. So the UN is all about violence and misinformation. And keep this in mind, everyone, they actually don't have their own standing army. What they'll do in the sense of a conflict is they get paid a ton of dough to go to a third world country, hire thugs from that country. They give them a very minimal amount of training, and then those thugs go into another country to police it, and they are immune from all the laws of the country that they are in. More rapes and theft and murder is committed by UN soldiers than anybody that they were paid to quell in the first place. The UN has to go. We must dissolve this group.
Not to mention, Kevin, the child trafficking they were also caught into. That's a big deal for the UN also, is child trafficking.
Oh, well, the UN, the problem with the United Nations is not only are they into child trafficking, but they are into birthing. They are deliberately having women all over Africa and the Middle East and other locations knocked up specifically to have babies born for either sale or for rape. And I hate saying it that way, but that's what they do. The UN is as evil as they come. I would like to see everybody who works for the UN in prison for the rest of their lives. Actually, I'd like to see more, but we can't say it here. They'll pull the show. Mike, what's next?
Okay.
Kevin, before we move on quickly, what Mike's talking about and the disinformation, about a year and a half ago, I posted, you got to go to the Rockefeller Foundation. They lay out the whole plan. Everything's there. And I posted all about this stuff. You want to see what's coming? Always go to that site. The UN is the head that gives the orders to all their branches and all their NGOs and garbage.
All right.
Yeah.
And if you thought that was bad, blue users on X or whatever, Twitter or whatever you want to call it, will need to send a selfie and data to Israeli software company.
Wow.
I could see Stefano's mic is off, and I could hear him laughing even though his mic is off because it's.
Yeah, you know that's coming under the digital control of everything. You're going to lose your access to anything.
So X, a social media platform formerly known as Twitter, will now require X Blue users to submit selfie alongside of a photo of a government-issued ID, according to PC Magazine. And I looked into this, and yes, it is. The move is apparently part of a drive to add additional layer of security against impersonation and fraud. Will there be anyone on the X platform who will happily hand their data to a tech firm that allegedly has links to the intelligence unit of the Israeli occupation forces? So,
wow, that's incredible. I just want to let everybody know also is that in the chat on Rumble and DLive and on Facebook now, I have put up the link for all of you to be able to read or listen to the audiobook of Brave New World. Let me just show it to you here. So in Twitch, in Facebook, DLive, Rumble, click on that YouTube link. It's a very good dramatized version of the audiobook, Brave New World. Listen to the whole thing and ask yourself how much the perversion in that book compares to the perversion in our society today. So that's in the chat for everybody. Go ahead and listen to that at your leisure. As for X, Twitter, whatever it might be, I in no way, shape, or form am going to be submitting identification to any social media platform, period. I'm done.
but I thought
I'm done with trying to verify myself to anybody. I'm a public figure. Figure it out.
Kevin, I thought we were friends.
Yeah, well, Mike. Continue. No comment.
All right. So there's a couple of headlines. I'm going to read up the headlines. De-dollarization is irreversible, says Putin. BRICS will become economically more powerful than G7. The Russian president said in an address at the Johannesburg summit that's happening right now. And BRICS nations aims to end U.S. dollar domination. And is that the other? Yeah. So let me explain to you guys. The BRICS nations will not be backed by a gold currency or a gold standard. It won't work.
Okay.
It can't work.
What will it be backed by?
It will be backed by like the petrodollar is: oil, commodities, exports, trade, GDP. It will not work with gold. It's great. It's the best thing, a transit currency that's backed by gold. I'm 100% for it. So before you tell me, I'm anti-gold, no. Now let's go back to 1971 when Richard Milhouse Nixon took America off the gold standard. In my theory of whatever I've learned all these years, I believe wholeheartedly, nobody really agrees with this, but I believe wholeheartedly, they had to take America off the gold standard because they couldn't continue the war in Vietnam under a gold-backed currency. It was just too damn expensive. Now, if the BRICS nations want to have a gold-backed currency that's gold-backed, just like how the Portuguese Empire did for a couple of 100 years, they could do it. Mm-hmm. But what was the Portuguese Empire not doing that these guys are doing? The Portuguese Empire wasn't at war. You see? The Portuguese Empire didn't have a big military. They had a lot of land, but they didn't have the military. But now, if Russia, South Africa, if they do want to back their currency by gold, they could go ahead and do it, but they can't be going to war because they're going to have to print a lot of money to catch up with their military industrial complexes. The West will just start building up their military to a point where it will end up bankrupting the BRICS nations because they either catch up military-wise and technological-wise, or they get off a gold standard. You can't have it. You can't have a gold standard and go to war. I'm sorry, Kevin. That's just me. Most people will disagree.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. I understand exactly what you're saying. Taking the U.S. dollar off the gold standard allowed them to print whatever they wanted, lie about the amount of money that had been printed, and then build up the American war machine. I get it. There was no way the Americans could spend $1 trillion a year on defense in the early 1990s unless they were off of the gold standard. There isn't that much gold in the world.
Above ground.
I mean, if you stop and think about the amount of gold that's actually been mined, and I'm not talking about junk gold, I'm talking about real gold that's been mined. The professionals, the experts in the gold industry will say it's about 1.5 Olympic swimming pools full. To give you an idea of how big an Olympic swimming pool is, it's 50 meters long, it's 25 meters wide, it is 6 feet deep in the shallow end. It is 16 feet deep in the deep end because Olympic pools typically have Olympic diving platforms on them. That's all the gold that's been mined that is being used by nations for currency backing. That's not $1 trillion. All right, go ahead.
Don't forget that China bought all that gold, that physical gold. They got majority of it. And
from Canada, yes.
And you remember when Bush Sr. went into the Gulf War or into the war there in Iraq? What happened there? He stopped a day before the country went bankrupt because he couldn't do it. Canada is so pathetic that we were bankrupt. We could not even pay to have our ships, which for military purpose. And they were using like ocean liners or whatever, just supply ships, like normal civilian ships. We didn't even have naval ships, and they were leaving them there. There's the whole article on it. It's quite the embarrassing thing. So if you can't do it gold back and you can't do it by printing currency, as in Canada, I'd like to see how they're going to do it on digital.
Yeah, that's a good question.
The thing is with digital, what'll happen is they'll bring other currencies out. Other tokens, and they'll say, oh, these ones here, they've got high value. They'll skyrocket in value for a short while, and then they'll crash. Like Terra Luna was a cryptocurrency that last year, Crypto.com was offering 35% a month on in interest. So I bought some, I think it was like 9 cents a coin. It went to $95 US a coin. I cleared them out around $80 a coin, and it dropped to a penny a coin. So that particular thing was a scam. Governments will do the same thing. They'll bring in temporary tokens, blow them up in value, spend, let them drop.
Well, they're having a big problem now. If you remember when the first talk about this digital currency came about in the Canadian Parliament, they just couldn't do it because you remember the currency we have now is backed and based on the amount of resources the country has. So this is what it was being backed with. And now, since we have the cash, this currency system, they could not back any digital because they have nothing to back it with. So this is where I want to see what's going to happen here in this situation.
All right, next headline.
Next.
Mike, what do you got?
All right, this is a report for people down in the United States. These 14 American cities plan to ban meat, dairy, and private vehicles by 2030. Is yours on the list? I'll read them off. Austin. Hello, are you making fun of me here?
Oh God, no! Because they've got to be Democrat. Hold on, Austin, Texas.
Yep. So this is the planning to completely outlaw all meat and dairy, and it goes into. So they have the write-ups of the city, my city plan, or my city planning, my city, that you could go to your own city and check what your agenda is and working on the 15-minute whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Austin, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, Chicago, Illinois, Houston, Texas, Los Angeles, California, Miami, Florida, New Orleans, Louisiana, New York, New York City, New York, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Phoenix, Arizona, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, California, Washington of District of Columbia, and Seattle, Washington. All 14.
Let me make commentary. I know all these cities. Okay, let me make some commentary here. Mike, scroll back up, please.
I'm going to tell you why here real quick.
Go ahead.
All 14 of these cities are part of the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group. And if you go to those cities write-ups or Welcome to My City, they have the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group installed into their city plan. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just talking. You're not wrong about the city plan. Now scroll back down to the list of cities.
Oh,
right.
Sorry.
Keep going. Stop. Beautiful. Now, Austin, Texas right now is a very conservative state, and Governor Abbott is also highly conservative. Yet, for whatever the reason, all the Californians who left California relocated to Austin. I'm understanding that,
Texifornia, I call it.
Yeah, Texifornia. So I understand where Austin would be the major left-wing center in Texas. Chicago makes sense. Houston does not make sense at all. Los Angeles makes sense. Miami is there are a lot of Cubans there. There's a lot of Cuban Christians there. Very conservative people. They're not going to put up with this. Are you kidding me? Like Cubans love their pork and chicken and fish. There's no way you're going to take that away from them. Period. Now, Philadelphia makes sense. San Francisco, obviously. I mean, there's more feces on the streets than in the sewers in that town. I get it. Totally. Ed, what's up?
Most Cubans have never tasted beef. Most people alive in Cuba today have never had beef.
No, chicken, pork, and fish. That's what they do. I know that.
Pork is rare. Chicken once a month. Fish, whatever they can poach.
Yeah, well, it's an island nation, so cows are not prevalent there. Period. What's next, Mike? Go ahead.
Okay, children were incinerated to ash. Livid Hawaiian slam Biden for cracking jokes, lying about wife. So he was lying about some kitchen fire he had and tried to relate it to what happened in Hawaii. And then it goes into here. Head of Maui's emergency management agency resigns amid criticism for not sounding alert sirens during wildfire. They were actually told to stand down.
By who?
They were told to stand down by the higher authority, right?
Holy crap.
Yeah, this is something I had read too. So, there's something definitely going on, and it's not wildfires by climate. And again, in 2017, climate change was disproven in the courts and shot to hell. And yes, Chris, Cuba is communist.
Okay. And the Hawaii water official who refused to release the water to fight Maui fires is a climate equity cult member. So here he is right there promoting himself. And this is the official who refused to release water in Maui, contributing to 106 deaths. So basically, this idiot thinks he's going to win an award or something for basically saving water. What an idiot. I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
Yeah. And Maui's, it's right beside the ocean. They could have just stuck pumps in there and brought water in from the ocean. I hope this guy, look, I can't say much unless it's in the form of a prayer. So hold on. Dear Jesus in heaven, whom I love so much, please have wild monkeys lynch this guy. There we go. Amen. God, we need to expose these idiots, and these idiots, like, we know the courts are never going to punish them, especially in left-wing centers like that. So I guess the monkeys are going to have to do it for us. Please, Jesus. My God.
Amen. All right. Iran unveils advanced drones. The new unmanned aerial vehicles are reported to have operational radius of about 2,000 kilometers, about 1,250 miles.
Okay. Do you know what this is all about? This is all about the fact that Iran they're so livid with the United Arab Emirates and Qatar over the amount of money those two countries have, that these drones, they're not meant to go to Europe. These are going to be hitting targets downtown Dubai. That's what this is all about. The reason that so much investment left Dubai is because the Iranian government said flat out, we will put missiles downtown and we will knock down the Burj Khalifa, currently the world's tallest building, like tallest anything man has ever built. Imagine that thing come crashing down. So that's what these drones will be for, in my professional opinion. Go ahead.
Cyprus hotel resorts where more than 400 migrants lived in squalor before they were evicted following huge riots, and huge damage done to this Cyprus resort.
Is that the pool? That's the pool.
Yeah, that's the pool. It's garbage.
Oh my God. Scroll down. What do we got here next? Oh, they trashed the place.
Yeah, it was a decent hotel too. And and you know, look at that. It's just,
yeah, unreal. So does everybody still think open borders is a really, really good idea? Is it our responsibility to bring people like that into our lives?
So I thought I'd bring that up tonight. Now let's head over to Europe real quick. Now the pieces are moving on the chessboard. We're seeing the buildup now in Belarus. So U.S. State Department approved sale of 96 Apache helicopters to Poland, and Poland is now ramping up on their military industrial machine. And Ukraine set to obtain 61 F-16s from Denmark and Netherlands.
Okay, go back to the AH-64A Apache, please, if you could.
Yeah?
Yes, scroll it down. Okay, this thing here is the deadliest helicopter ever created. It can carry 16 Hellfire anti-tank missiles, first off. On the bottom there, if you look in between the tires, first you see the landing wheel in the back. Yeah, that cannon can fire 50 caliber rounds. Now think about this. It's got what they call the Cyberlink on that. The pilot wears a helmet. In his left eye is infrared. In his right eye is a cat's eye vision. The pilots have to learn how to view two different images at the same time with the helmets they wear. But the guy just goes like this, whoop, looks at the target, pulls the trigger, and the target is dead. It's turned into Swiss cheese. This thing here should never be in the hands of anybody except for the West. We should not be selling these things to any country, anywhere, period. This weapon is far too deadly. And it can just sit. It can hover below a sand dune and just come up, hit a bunch of tanks, and drop right back down. This thing is
so
a
96
remarkable
of them
piece of technology.
So Poland's going to hold 96 of them, and I told you before on the show they're going to, and before they're going to drag Poland into this war.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Poland shouldn't have them because the Russians are going to look at this and say, what do they want that for? You know, it was the same idea. Let's see if we can pull up a photograph here of the A-10 Thunderbolt. Like, this is something that we got to show people. All right. There we go. Found it. And give me a second here, folks. It takes a second to upload this to the to our software. But I want you to understand how the Russians view everything out there. And almost kaboom. This is the Fairchild Republic A-10 Thunderbolt 2. I am blown away at what this aircraft is. The engines are stacked up in the back where anything on the ground cannot hit it. Look at all the missile racks it has. All right, 3 missile racks per wing plus a chain gun in the middle. The gun it has fires depleted uranium bullets. Depleted uranium is super dense. It goes right through tank armor. Now, the Russians were so terrified of this weapon, this plane, when it first came out, that they built their own. They called it the Frogfoot. Now, the Frogfoot there was no real pictures of it. But what they said was, Yankee built one, must be good reason. We built one too. Now, what are they going to do? That Poland is going to have these attack helicopters that could not only take out tanks, but take out fighter aircraft. Are they going to develop their own? Or are they just going to put their entire armed forces on the Polish border? This is a stupid move. This is a really stupid move.
That's why I brought it up on tonight's show, because I think this is important. And then Ukraine set to obtain 61 F-16s from Denmark and Netherlands. That's another move on the chessboard. And this is from a few days ago, but I need to reiterate this again on the show. Belarusian forces conduct landing and assault drills near Polish border. Now, we're seeing the buildup between Belarus and Poland, and it's really, really heating up right now. Don't be surprised tomorrow morning when you wake up, you hear that Belarus or Poland are at war. Don't be, it shouldn't be a surprise, because this.
Okay. So if Poland and Belarus go to war, that would be what we call a proxy war. So the Americans would be supplying Poland and the Russians would be supplying Belarus, and the two of them can duke it out in that particular arena. Who ends up dying here? Belarusians and the Polish. And we don't want that. I really don't want that. Eastern Europe finally got its act together. They finally got their economy settled. They finally got their socioeconomics into place where they are dominant powers within Europe. And now we've got this. This is the Biden administration, by the way.
Yes.
Trump was dead set against this. And I love what Trump said when he was being interviewed. Who would you side with, Ukraine or Russia? He says he's not going to side with anybody. He just wants people to stop dying. He also said that he would broker a deal within 24 hours to end the war. I believe him, because this has to stop. Go ahead.
And here's something that hasn't been mentioned. In the next week or two, Poland is to invade Ukraine, and they will have NATO in tow right behind them. So this is where this will be what will trigger everything. And then everyone is going to jump in. It's going to spiral everywhere. And then we're going to have a spillover all over the place until we're in a world war situation again.
Right. Now, here's the big question. How many of you, hands up, feel that it's your duty to go and fight this war on Polish soil or on Belarusian soil or on Ukrainian soil? It's not. It has nothing to do with us. We shouldn't be funding it. But at the same time, the American people are responsible here in that they knew the election was stolen. Why have the American people not done something about it and removed this administration by force if they have to, who's now seeding World War III for no good reason whatsoever? I can't see any economic gain to anybody except for companies that build war machines. Ed, what's up?
Perfect distraction for the 15-minute cities coming into place, Agenda 2030 coming into place, digital dollar coming into place, the fall of the American dollar. Everyone's going to be preoccupied with this war. What a perfect distraction.
It's going to be a perfect way, especially if it goes nuclear, to depopulate the planet as quick as they can, which, remember, that's their goal of depopulation.
Yep. Anyways, Mike, how many more stories you got?
Not that many. I could cut it off any time, but
no, keep going, brother. This is great. Keep going. What else do we got?
So this is it right here. And what was that there? Sorry, there was something else here. Was a separate. The Belarusian Ministry of Defense has confirmed that 5-day training exercise for land and assault forces is being conducted in Brest city, southwest of Belarus, on the Polish border. It is understood that officers have already participated in parachute landings and embarked on 15-kilometer march in the region, the training area just a few kilometers from the Bug River on the border between Poland and Belarus. So this has been brewing for a while now between Belarus and there's been what's that detachment that was in there? Those mercenaries, Kevin?
Oh, where in Poland?
Are you talking Russia there? Or are we talking the Wagner group?
Yeah, some of them are in Belarus too, right? So I just kind of wanted to let people know that too. Some of them are there too. So it's kind of not sure where these guys are moving or positioning their. I think we're not in checkmate yet, but I think the Queen's in trouble, right?
Well, Wagner's pretty much done. They're on the run. They're just getting slaughtered. They're getting torn to pieces by Russia. So they've been getting hit hard.
Okay, so Russia's line of defense has thwarted the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Yeah. And this was a few days back. I kind of want to tie this in because it's kind of important. And the Ukrainian counteroffensive launched over 2 months ago has failed. Now, I made this bold prediction on your show a few months back, Kevin. I don't know if you remember it, but I'll bring it up again. I believe they're going to give Zelensky, they're going to give him an ultimatum, and they're going to tell him, look, you're going to take Crimea by Christmas or it's game over. The funding is over. Zelensky can't take Crimea by Christmas. It's unobtainable. But I think that's how they're going to throw him under the bus, Kevin. I believe they're going to give him an ultimatum, and I'm waiting for the headline to come up. But I believe that's what they're going to do to Zelensky. You got till Christmas to Crimea. We spent too much on this war, and if you can't take Crimea back, it's game over with the funding. And I think that might happen.
Well, it's a brazen prediction, but it's not unrealistic, Mike. And I'll tell you, Zelensky himself, I think at this particular point, he's now actually upset. He's angered everybody who is funding him. His particular demeanor, especially when he refuses to put on a shirt and tie when he's dealing with any of the world leaders out there, he shows up wearing green shirts like an idiot. And all the photographs of him dancing around in spandex pants and in high heels with lipstick, all that stuff's getting out now. So he's just irritating all the world leaders out there. Of course, they're going to give him an ultimatum. Period. Like, once the money laundering is complete, they don't need him anymore.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Polish army surpasses Germany and Spain to rank 20th in the world. Now, why would Poland should have, since World War II, they've been pretty much at, Western Poland, but you know what I mean? Poland's been at relative peace. Now they're basically ramping up their war machine. They are saber rattling. And according to Global Firepower ranking, the Polish army is ranked 20th among 145 militaries from around the world, ahead of Germany and Spain. Again, saber rattling happening along the Russian border.
Well, Trudeau's daddy always wore green army fatigues right till the day he died. Why can't Zelensky?
Because it's not the image that world leaders are expected. And believe me, there are many of them that take offense to that kind of thing. And it's incredibly unprofessional, period. Trudeau Sr., first off, Trudeau Jr. is as unprofessional as they come. World leaders won't even look him in the eye or shake his hand. But his father was more of a, clown than the average leader had been up to that point.
Well, I'm talking about Fidel. Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Trudeau. Junior and senior. These guys, both of them, have embarrassed us by dressing up like clowns everywhere they go. Look at Trudeau, our baby Trudeau now, when he went to India and insulted Hindus by dancing around like a fool, not having learned the dance moves. He just put his hand up like this and danced around like an idiot. Like he probably learned that from a Bugs Bunny cartoon. So when you have world leaders that dress like this and behave like this, yeah, they are going to be shunned and shamed and given ultimatums like Mike has said. Continue.
All right. So this is saber rattling happening. And there was I think there was a parade not too long ago while Belarus is doing their training along the border. And this military buildup has been started in 1993 and then started to build up around 97 and then 2003. And it's just getting worse along Russia's corridor there. And or that wall or that buffer zone that they were promised. And then the Obama administration came in and started to bring in more training on the Russian border, more, imagine they tried pulling that on the Mexican-US border. If China started building up armaments, I brought this up years ago. What if China brought up armaments and testing facilities and these laboratories to test pathogens on the Mexican border? I'm pretty sure the Americans would go in and invade, right? And that's what the Russians did when basically they were building up that presence on Russia's border. And Russia said, leave us the hell alone, right? And this become now a war of attrition for Russia, right?
Well, and it's a long time coming. NATO pushed far too hard, but continue.
Exclusive 2024 GOP candidate immigration questionnaire. Hopefuls explain vision of a migration policy ahead of the debate. And basically, it's finished building the damn wall. And I wanted to bring this up because they are going to have primaries for the Republicans. But the Democrats, apparently, and I made this prediction on your show a while back, that you're not going to see Democratic primaries in the United States because they've already chosen Joe Biden. Don't worry about RFK or people that will make a difference. There will be no Democratic primaries, just like when Hillary stole the Democratic primary from Bernie Sanders. The same thing you're going to see again. They're going to go with Joe Biden, and the people have spoken, even though nobody will vote for the guy. And
I'm a little concerned that they still might try to pull a fast one and put Michael, or sometimes known as Michelle Obama, in there. Yeah, because they've got Kamala Harris in there. They know she's a maniac. She's a little too mentally unstable for them to control. So the best thing in the world to do is to put Michelle Obama in the leadership role, mainly because Kamala's not fully white. So you got to say, well, if we remove her, everyone's going to say it's because she's partially black. Think about that. Ed.
Listen, even Joan Rivers knows it's Michael Obama. It's not Michelle Obama.
We all know it's Michael Obama. Michael Obama was the first man in the United States. Barack Obama, his half brother, Barack Obama's half brother came out and said, I hate the guy. I love Trump. Right? He was not born in the United States. He was born in Kenya. He admitted it. Anyway, Mike, next one.
Okay, this is an important one. Ukraine threatens more attacks on Crimea, and it goes back to the prediction I made that basically they're going to have to take Crimea by Christmas. I know it hasn't been said. I'm saying it on the Kevin J. Johnston show, okay?
Yes.
And Kiev is preparing... Huh?
You all heard it first on the Kevin J. Johnston show. Go ahead, Mike.
Kiev is preparing another attack on Crimea in the next several days. Head of the Ukrainian military's main intelligence told reporters on Tuesday in an interview with the Ukrainian outlet ITV, and it goes on to say the Crimean platform is an initiative of President Vladimir Zelensky government, which seeks to portray Russia as the occupier and oppressor of Crimea Tatars. Residents of the peninsula had voted overwhelmingly to rejoin Russia in March in 2014, shortly after the U.S.-backed coup installed a government of Ukraine nationalists in Kiev. So I'm telling you, I think this whole Crimea thing is going to be a very big pinnacle thing to whether or not Zelensky is going to get any more funding going forward.
Yeah, Mike, I just wanted to also let everybody know, I made a video this morning about the Edmonton riot that took place. It was between two groups of Eritreans. My video got 100,000 views today alone on TikTok, and here's what happened. Video removed. Yeah.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to appeal it. As soon as the show's over, I'm going to appeal that.
You're lucky because I got kicked off of TikTok.
I'm batting 50-50 when I appeal. So whenever I appeal something, there's a 50-50 chance it comes back up. It's essentially it. But they just don't seem to like the truth anymore around the world. Yeah. Mike, last story. We're out of time. Go ahead.
Okay, maybe I should bring one up. But well, let's bring up I got two last stories, but I guess I'll bring this one up. Gates Foundation pushes national digital ID tech and is controversial technology in India. So again, staging grounds. The digital era, with its myriad of innovations, has ushered in a wave of conveniences, but at what cost? The recent advocate by Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation for the modular open source identification platform, MOSIP, which we brought up on this show a while back, will now be under scrutiny by privacy advocates questioning the broader implications of such a global digital identification system. The Seattle-based Gates Foundation, guided the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, has actively endorsed MOSIP's undertaking with a sizable $10 million pledge. The foundation seems to focus on propelling a universal digital identification framework, which we brought up again on the show, especially targeting low to middle income economies. But as history has shown, with such advancements often come potential pitfalls, particularly regarding personal privacy. So people give up a little bit of their freedoms for more protection or more, but they end up losing more in the long run.
Any society that will give up a little liberty for a little security would deserve neither and lose both. Benjamin Franklin. So we need all of you to understand, this is a bad idea. Digital identification. You do not want to have any of this nonsense in your life. And for all of you out there who utter the stupid phrase, hey, I'll cooperate with the government or the police or the courts because I have nothing to hide. Let me ask you some questions here. All right. How much do you have in the bank? What is the PIN for your bank card? What is your bra size? How many women have you slept with? How many men have you slept with? How many women have you cheated on your wife with? How many men have you cheated on your husband with? Let's carry on. What kind of car do you drive? How much gas do you have in there? How many times a day do you break the speed limit? You have everything in the world to hide. Do not cooperate with any of this. Every single thing you do can open you up to an investigation of some type. Because remember this, cops get off on grilling you. When they're asking you questions, it's not a conversation, it's an interrogation. Walk away. Don't talk to them. Don't get digital ID. You're going to regret it. Ed, what's
Kevin,
up? Yes?
don't you want to be a global citizen?
Just
That's
for that?
what it's all about.
Just for that? Bye-bye. That's my answer, Ed, to your question. No, I don't want to be a global citizen at all. I don't want to be a part of any of it, for that matter. And, there will be a day, I'm sure, when I get really, 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 really old like Ed here, that I'm going to want to walk away from everything society has to offer. And how do I do that with a piece of digital identification? Period. All right, Mike, we're out of time. What's your final word?
Well, that's it. I just, prepare. Make sure you get water, food. Make sure you have gray water, guys. Nobody ever looks at gray water till they need it. Gray water is just a bunch of, those 7-Up bottles and all that stuff you collect around the house and you recycle. Save some of it. Put some tap water. I call that gray water. Use that to flush your toilets. Use it to, rinse your bodies off. Because people always put drinking water in storage and they don't put any gray water to clean stuff ever. And they use precious water for that.
Well, in the case, Mike, where the water has shut down, I think I'm just going to go and defecate on City Hall front steps. I mean, that's probably the best place. But Mike, how do people find you online?
I'm on Rumble. You could Mike Martin's channel and Real Mike Martin's. You could find me I'm on YouTube still on my second channel, and that's about it. I'm on Rumble. I'm going to say hi on Rumble to everyone there watching. Thanks for watching, everyone, and sharing. And you could subscribe to me there if you'd like. And
what's your website, Mike?
RealMikeMartins.com.
There you go.
RealMikeMartins.com. Mike, it's always a pleasure, brother. Thanks for being here tonight, and thanks for doing all that research. We certainly
I have spoken.
You have. Mike Martins, everybody, watch his show on Saturday nights on YouTube, Mike in the Night. And Ed, myself, and Stefanos down there, we've all been on that show numerous times. It's a great show. He's a great guy, smart as hell. Ed, final word. Go ahead.
Yep. Okay. 1 million marks for children.com. There's been a few changes that occurred this week. I think Camille may have stepped aside on this one. But this is it's growing like crazy.
Oh, Dana is growing it like mad, like absolute wildfire. So, and there's also a couple of groups in the Edmonton area that are conjoining this. So go ahead.
So, uniting diverse backgrounds and faiths, we share a resolute purpose, advocating for the elimination of sexual orientation, gender identity, SOGI curriculum. That's part of their core statement. And here's their website. Guys, go there, check it out, register. Just because we had a success was it Saskatchewan? Where's Mark from? Saskatchewan or Manitoba? Mo.
I don't remember. Oh, Mark Friesen, sorry. Yeah. Saskatchewan.
Just because they had a victory there does not mean it's coming to Ontario. Guys, get involved, please, for your kids. Not my kids. Don't worry about my kids. For your kids, for the future generations. We got to stand up September 20th.
Keep in mind that you do have to fight in Ontario because Toronto is a very, very left-wing, liberal NDP, crazy Marxist center. You're up against everything there. So do your very best to go against the grain, folks, and get SOGI shut down and locked out. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Later.
All right, man. Ed, take that down, please. We got to get Stefanos' face up.
Yeah.
Steph?
You don't really want it up. But, that first link I posted in your private chat, you should post it on your site. Do something, share it out there, get it out there. This was a 2017 court case against Tim Ball, Michael Mann, hockey stick theory boy, soy boy.
Oh, you'll be happy to know I've been making a lot of videos about climate change, and I've been proving to people climate change is false by simple things. Today's video was Statue of Liberty, a photograph from 1890, and a statue from last year, and you'll see the ocean is not one bit different in its.
That's right.
Yes, I will be doing that. And
but it's a court case, and it has destroyed this whole climate garbage, and that people should be putting it out there because that is a precedent-setting case.
I will be making some videos about that, and follow me on Instagram, everybody, just so that you can see what I'm up to. The Instagram channel, for some reason, I've doubled the number of followers just in the last 4 months. So that's it there. Follow me on Instagram because I put things there first now, only because the platform is so easy to use. There we are.
Every time Mike says I have spoken, I feel like I need a gavel in my hand and I should be slamming it. That's all he does to me.
Well, go buy one. I'm not buying it for you. Right. Thanks, pal. Stefanos Keratopoulos, everybody. Wow, the show went half an hour late, but it was absolutely worth it. 100% worth it. We're not going to leave you tonight with the song that we usually do, mainly because at the 2.5 hour mark, Rumble starts to get a little upset with us, and they tend to not put the entire show up. So I'll just sign off by saying, my name is Kevin J. Johnston. This is the Kevin J. Johnston Show that runs every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. We never miss a beat. You'll catch us on freedomreport.ca every single Tuesday. Thank you for being here. I love you all, and good night.